Hey everybody, it's Ian King, founder of King Sports International and author of many books on training and innovative training methods used throughout the world. I want to take the time to share with you now about the 2014 KSI Annual International Convention holding in Park City, Utah for the 11th year in a row. So what many of you would be aware of is that as a company we've been operating for 27, 28 years, and as a coach we've been working in the industry for over 30 years. During that time, I've had the opportunity to work with many athletes in athlete preparation and develop many coaching programs, including a number of books that you may be familiar with. We've also served the end user through our Get Buff range. Again, many of you may already have those books or have heard of those books. What we say is we lead the world in athlete preparation, and in these days on the internet where everybody has an opinion, there's many who say, well, why do you say that? So let's give you a quick insight into why we claim that we lead the world in athlete preparation, and at the same time stress to you that the best way for you to get access to our information before others and from the source is to actually be there. So what I'm going to do is run you through, say, 7 examples of information that we've developed and shared with the world to indicate just how much we've been leading the physical preparation world. In the mid-80s, I developed the concept of speed timing. I didn't formally share it until the late 1990s, although there was a North American coach who came and watched me coach and shared it a little bit earlier than that. But that's just the first example of how I was developing that some 10 to 15 years before we shared it. Then there's my lines of movement concept. I was working on that in the 1980s, but as you can see, I didn't get to share it fully until 1998. 1998 was the first time I released that concept. And it didn't take too long, obviously, for it to be published prolifically without reference. So that was a concept that I'd worked on for 11 years before releasing. Talk about my unique bodyweight exercises. So they're so common these days that everyone new in the industry think they always were that way, but I can assure you that when I released these exercises back in the late 1990s, there weren't too many people promoting bodyweight exercises, unilateral bodyweight exercises integrated into conventional strength training. So it was actually a bit of a risk, but I developed those exercises during the late 80s. In particular, myself had some injuries which required me to innovate, as well as the athletes I was taking care of. So I developed these unique exercises over a 10-year plus period of time and began sharing them for the first time in about 1998. Now, you wouldn't have seen the first copy until about 2001. I saw an unreferenced copy in Men's Health, and then in 2003 started going on from there. And after that, it became pretty much the carte blanche copying. Let's talk about example number 4, the concept of control stability as a strength subquality. Again, everyone thinks that that's just as it is, as the 3 stages of truth dictates, that the first is rejection, secondly ridicule, and then finally acceptance, as it always was. And that's pretty much the case it is with my introducing the concept of control and stability as a subquality of strength and part of the periodization model. I introduced that in the early 90s, although it was only in coach education that I did that. And it wasn't until the late 90s that I shared it more openly, and from there on in you'll see reference to this model quite extensively. Well, at least you'll see the model, you probably won't see too much reference. Example number 5. Pre-workout activation drills. Again, I developed them through the late 80s into the 90s. Didn't write about them until the late 1990s. The first time I released them at all was in my 1998 Strength Specialization DVD series, and included unique exercises, unique names, the flutters and the scarecrows, the co-contraction partial range lunge, etc., as well as the whole concept of doing them prior to a strength workout. And again, that's just another exercise, another training method that's become pretty much universally adopted, although because who they've learned it from, I suggest that they're pretty misguided and it's missed the point. But it's just another example of something that I was working on for over 10 years before I released it. What about abs first in the workout? Well, it's been pretty controversial, and that's one thing that certainly hasn't been as adopted as some of my other concepts. But here's an example of me writing about using abdominals first back in the early 80s. Now, I didn't write about that to any great extent until the late 90s. So that's probably a 15, 16-year period between when I started innovating and when I actually started teaching it more openly. And 7th and finally, let's talk about reverse periodization. It's a concept that I need to credit also the late great Charlie Francis with his work in this area as well. So we are able to change the way periodization was reviewed in relation to all qualities, but initially in relation to speed periodization and strength periodization. And I was using these methods, in endurance periodization, I was using these methods in the late 80s, early 90s, but again didn't get to write about them in mainstream publications until the late 1990s. So they're just 7 examples of why I say we lead the world in athletic preparation. They're just 7, where it could go on a lot more than that. So for 11 years in a row now, we've been getting together in a place in America for our annual coaching camp, and I want to take a moment to talk about that. Back in the late 1990s, I introduced the concept of a boot camp to physical preparation as a professional development activity, and it took about 4 years for that to be copied. So by around 2003, you started to see them proliferate. By then, I'd moved on to the concept of coach mentoring programs. Again, that's another innovation for the physical preparation industry, and that took about 2 years for the typical copy people to imitate it. But we believe they don't have it right, and they still can't match what we do. So for 11 years in a row now, in the same location, we've been running a coach and athlete educational experience, which involves not only the classroom work, but we teach the art of coaching. We give athletes an experience that only true coaches can give them, both in all areas of physical qualities, from flexibility to strength, through to speed, and teaching coaches as well as athletes concurrently on the field and in the gym and whatever training environment they work in, and giving them the opportunity to come back in and discuss their experiences with each other, to learn in a training environment, in activities that they can participate in, the opportunity to further discuss their learnings and their experiences on the field, to discuss their learning experiences in the gym, and to further engage over meals, as we did here, as we typically do when we like to get up to the historic Main Street in Park City, a beautiful part of America. We also get opportunities to get exposed to some of the best training facilities in the world, such as what you're seeing here. But the bottom line is, you'll only get to see what they get to see if you're there. So there's an opportunity for you to be part of our program. See, for the last 10 years, you had to have a reasonably high level of pre-qualification to attend. However, for the first time in 11 years, we're allowing people to register with no pre-qualifications and to be part of at least 2 days of this bigger experience. And this is no different than the training methods that I typically develop over a 10-year plus period before I release them. We want to get them right. We don't muck around with people's careers. We don't muck around with athletes' futures. We don't muck around with coaches' careers. We get it right before we give you an opportunity to participate. And that's exactly what's happening here. For the first time in 11 years of this event, without any pre-qualification, you can attend the Saturday and Sunday component. We call it the convention. However, as I said, you're only going to get to see what they see when you're part of it. So there you are. There's an insight into what you'll get when you attend Park City with us in August 2014. And I can't stress enough how much of a great opportunity that is for you. And in addition to that, we're even allowing you to bring an athlete or a client of your selection. So we want you to have the experience, and we want your athlete, your client, to have that experience with us to double the value of the experience. So we look forward to spending some time with you in Park City in this unique and first opportunity of its kind.